Imagine waking up tomorrow and your refrigerator is gone. Not broken, gone. The hum you never notice is silent. The cold air that hits your face every morning when you open that door, gone. You look at your kitchen counter. There's milk sitting in the sun. Meat from yesterday, already warm to the touch. Leftover from last night, quietly turning into something dangerous. You have maybe 6 hours before that food starts working against you. Now stretch that forward. Not one day without a fridge, a lifetime. Every meal, every summer, every piece of meat you've ever eaten, all of it exposed to heat, to bacteria, to time. For more than 190,000 years, that was simply how humans lived. No cold, no pause button on decay. No safety net between a fresh kill and a rotten one. So here's the question that should be bothering you right now. If food starts dying the moment it's alive, how did humans not die with it? Let's start with something you've never actually had to think about. Food doesn't wait for you. The moment an animal is killed, or a fruit is picked, or milk leaves an udder, a clock starts ticking. Bacteria that were dormant begin to multiply. Enzymes inside the food start breaking it down from the inside. Within hours, not days, hours, that food is no longer the thing it was. We don't feel this urgency anymore. We open the fridge and time simply stops for whatever's inside. A steak bought on Monday is basically the same steak on Thursday. That's not normal. That's not how food behaves in nature. That's a 20th century miracle we've been trained to ignore. So rewind the clock. Take away the fridge, take away the freezer, take away ice, take away refrigerants, take away electricity itself. Now you're standing where our ancestors stood, with a dead animal in front of you, a sun rising in the sky, and a decision to make in the next few hours that will determine whether your family eats safely or gets violently sick. This is the problem humans lived inside of for almost their entire existence. And here's the part that should genuinely surprise you. They didn't just survive it. They built entire civilizations around solving it. Thousands of years before anyone understood what bacteria even were. Let's go back to the beginning of the problem, because it's worse than you think. Picture early humans on a successful hunt. They've just brought down something big, say a large animal that could feed the whole group for days. This should feel like a victory. And for a moment, it is. But there's a brutal catch hiding inside that success. More meat than you can eat in one sitting means more meat that starts to rot before you can eat it. The bigger the kill, the bigger the race against time. You can't just save it for later. Later doesn't exist yet. There's no concept of later for food, not until humans invent a way to freeze time itself chemically without ever knowing what chemistry is. So think about the psychological weight of that moment. You're standing over food that represents days of survival for your entire group, and it is actively, invisibly dying in front of you. Most people assume early humans just ate constantly, all day, gorging themselves because food was scarce and unpredictable. But that's only half true. The deeper reason they ate in huge quantities, quickly, wasn't just hunger. It was damage control. Eating fast wasn't a lack of manners. It was a race against decomposition. And even then, even eating as much as physically possible, there was still food left over, which meant there was still a problem left over. So what do you do with meat you can't eat, can't cool, and can't just leave sitting in the heat? You'd think the obvious answer is eat less, kill smaller animals. But nature doesn't offer that kind of control. You don't get to schedule how big your next meal is. Sometimes it's a rabbit, sometimes it's a mammoth. And when it's a mammoth, You are suddenly sitting on thousands of pounds of meat with absolutely nowhere to put it. This is the exact moment where human ingenuity had to show up, or the story ends there. At some point, someone noticed something strange. Meat left in the open sun rotted almost immediately, but meat left near a fire smoked, blackened, dried out by heat, lasted longer, sometimes much longer. Nobody understood why. There was no concept of bacteria, no concept of moisture content, no science at all behind the discovery. Just observation, trial, error, and survival pressure forcing humans to pay very close attention to what worked and what killed them. This is one of the most underrated moments in human history, and almost nobody talks about it. Because think about what smoking meat actually requires. You need controlled fire. You need to understand how to keep something near heat without cooking it completely. You need patience, sometimes days of patience, while food that could be eaten right now sits untouched, slowly transforming. That's an enormous leap in thinking for a species that, biologically, is wired to eat available food immediately. Early humans had to override a basic survival instinct, eat now, in favor of a more sophisticated one. Preserve now, survive later. And it worked. Smoked and dried meat could last weeks, sometimes months. But here's where you'd expect the story to end. Problem solved, humans figured it out, moving on. Except it didn't end there. Because smoking and drying created a brand new problem nobody saw coming. Preserved meat lasted longer. Great, but it also became harder to eat. Dried meat is tough, genuinely difficult to chew, especially for children, the elderly, or anyone with weak teeth. In a world with no dentistry, no soft foods, no blenders, that mattered enormously. So humans had to solve preservation and edibility at the same time. And they did, by pounding dry meat into smaller pieces, mixing it with fat and sometimes berries, creating what we now recognize as an early form of pemmican, a dense, portable, long-lasting food source that solved two problems at once. It wouldn't rot, and you could actually eat it. This wasn't luck. This was generations of iteration, trial, failure, adjustment, passed down, and refined over and over. But smoking and drying only worked in certain climates. Try drying meat somewhere humid, and instead of preserving it, you accelerate the rot. The moisture in the air feeds the exact bacteria you're trying to stop. So, what happens to the humans who didn't live somewhere hot and dry? What happens in the Arctic? What happens in freezing tundras where there's barely any sun to smoke meat under? This is where the story takes a turn you probably didn't expect. In the coldest parts of the world, humans didn't need to invent preservation. The environment had already invented it for them. Meat left outside in freezing temperatures simply stopped decaying, not slowed down, stopped almost entirely for as long as the cold lasted. This might seem obvious to us now. Of course, cold preserves food. We learned that in school. But imagine being the first person to notice this without any scientific framework at all. You kill an animal. You can't finish it. You leave the rest outside because there's nowhere else to put it. And days later, you come back expecting rot. And instead, the meat is still edible. That single observation, repeated across generations in cold climates, became one of the most powerful survival tools in human history. Arctic and subarctic peoples took this further than almost anyone. They dug pits into permanently frozen ground, permafrost, and used it as a natural freezer, thousands of years before anyone had the word freezer. Meat, fish, even entire animal carcass could be stored underground, frozen solid, safe from both decay and scavengers. Here's a twist that should stop you for a second. This wasn't a backup plan. This was, in some ways, more effective than anything happening in warmer climates. Cold climate humans, using nothing but holes in frozen ground, were preserving food more reliably than communities relying on fire and smoke thousands of miles away. Geography didn't just decide where humans could live. It decided how they were forced to think. But most of human history didn't happen in the Arctic. Most of it happened in temperate and warm regions, places without permafrost, without reliable freezing winter, without a natural freezer waiting underground. So what did they do? This next part is going to change how you think about something sitting in your kitchen right now. Salt. You probably think of salt as a flavor, a seasoning, something you sprinkle on food because it tastes better. For most of human history, salt wasn't about taste. It was about survival. Salt does something remarkable to food at a microscopic level. It pulls moisture out of it through a process called osmosis. And since bacteria need moisture to multiply and destroy food, removing that moisture effectively starves the bacteria before they can start. Ancient humans didn't know the word osmosis. They didn't know what bacteria were, but they knew through relentless trial and error that meat packed in salt lasted dramatically longer than meat left untouched. This discovery didn't just solve a food problem, it restructured entire economies. Salt became so valuable that it shaped trade routes across continents. Roman soldiers were, according to some accounts, partially paid in salt, which is where we get the word salary. Cities were built specifically because they sat near salt deposits or salt trade routes. Wars were fought over access to it. Stop and sit with that for a second. An ingredient you barely think about, something you might not even measure when you cook, once determined which cities became wealthy and which empires could feed their armies far from home. Salted meat and salted fish could survive long sea voyages.